You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Welcome to the big show, everyone. We certainly appreciate you guys coming by. Oh, my gosh. It's the big circus tent podcast in the sky with all the brilliant people, all the smart people, and everyone is there, and I am none of the smart people. I'm just one of the dumb guys who's the host of the show, but we certainly appreciate being here. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss. Check out the new AI podcast at AIChrisVoss.com. Yeah, that's it. AI podcast with ChrisVoss.com. And also, what the hell is the other one? Chris Voss Leadership Podcast.com as well. Anyway, we have an amazing gentleman on the show to tell us his story about his journey as a military officer. And he's quite extraordinary in what he's done. He's, I guess, what they class as CDW. So he was in the military for quite some time. And he's got an amazing story in his book that has just come out September 15th, 2022. It's called Razor 3, A Night Stalker's Wars. Alan C. Mack joins us on the show today. He's going to be talking to us about his wonderful book. He's an elite aviator, war hero, and author of the latest book that we just aforementioned. The call to adventure was persuasive, and he moved up the ranks from aircraft mechanic to night stalker flight lead in the military. He was flying MH-47 Chinooks with a 160th SOAR over his 35 years in the Army. His experience and leadership put him at the forefront of his clandestine special operations, some still too classified to discuss in an open forum. The man has secrets. Secrets, I say. His awards include the Legion of Merit, 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 10 Air Medals, 1 with the V. We'll find out what that's about. I think that's about the TV series in the 90s, wasn't it? The V? No, I'm sure it wasn't. And he has a combat action badge. You know how many badges I have? None, because I suck. But he's awesome. So we have him on the show. He finished his military career as a commander of the West Point Military Academy's flight detachment before taking on public service in Orange County, New York, serving as a deputy commissioner of emergency management. Welcome to the show, Alan. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
There you go. Well, you're a highly decorated officer. Thanks for joining us on the show. Give us your .com so people can find you on the interwebs, please.
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. AlanCMack.com, and that's ALAN for Alan. So AlanCMack.com.
There you go. And then just calm down there, Alan. Your energy's a little too high for the show. I got him laughing there. He's going, boys. So, Alan, what motivated you want to write this book?
Actually, the movie 12 Strong came out. So, I flew the horse soldiers in, the guys that were portrayed in that movie. Like Chris Hemsworth was in there. He was supposed to play me in the movie, but he played the Green Beret major instead. I guess he was a little too short for me anyway.
That's true. He's too good looking too.
Yeah, for sure. But
he's ridiculously good looking. I don't know what that means. Sound like a joke.
Well, I was invited to the premiere down in Manhattan, and while I was there, I was talking to an author that was working with that team named Jim DeFelice. He wrote the book American Sniper, which they made a movie of that. Yeah. And he's like, you tell a good story. Why don't you write a book? And I was thinking, I don't know about that, right? And he offered to help, which turned out to be smoking cigars and drinking bourbon, which was enough.
Yeah, that's always a great way to start.
That's kind of what got me rolling.
There you go. If you do that while you write, it works out pretty well, I hear. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. It depends on if you set your paperwork on fire. Wait, people don't do that anymore. They don't use typewriters. So tell us a little about your history. What was your upbringing? What got you into being in the military?
It's kind of funny. It's the be all you can be commercials back in the 70s. So I was in junior high, and those things were running around, on the TV, all 4 channels. And they had like three of them that involved helicopters, and I always wanted to fly helicopters. And the Army offered a program at the time called high school to flight school. Like you graduate high school and put in for Army, flight school and go, right? So I go to the recruiter, and I say, hey, I'd like to fly helicopters. He's like, oh, pump the brakes there, turbo. It doesn't work that way. So he said, why don't you join as an aircraft mechanic? Kind of learn the culture, the climate, learn something, some of the lingo, and then put in for flight school, and it's a lot easier. Well, that's a little recruiter spiel, but it turned out to be good advice.
There you go.
I worked on helicopters for 9 years and kind of hit a point in the Army where it was time to either get out or move up. And moving up for me was flight school. So I put in for it with the idea that if I didn't get picked up, I'd just get out. And I got picked up.
And yeah, I mean, you did, what was it, 35 years?
Yeah, 35 years, 11 months.
Wow, man. I mean, that is a long time to be in the military. Do most people stay that long, or do they usually roll out?
No, a lot of guys will do their 4 years or 3 years and get out. And then if they stay, they'll typically get out at 20, which is what I would have done, except, 9/11 happened, the war was raging, and I was in a kind of an important position in the special operations community. So I didn't want to get out.
There you go. And speaking of 9/11, that's kind of where your book begins. Let's talk about what launches into that.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm down in Louisiana. There's they call it the Joint Readiness Training Center, and that's where special operations forces go to practice. It's a big free play area where you get to use all your tools, all your equipment that you might not be able to use out and about, but you can use it there because it's a restricted area. And I flew the night of the 10th, came back, was kind of trying to sleep in because we were operating at night, and somebody yelled down the hallway, turn on your TV, turn on your TV. And we were standing in one of these old military barracks that have cinder block walls and tile floors, so the noise, just carries. So I was like, shut up. And they're like, no, turn on your TV. So I turn it on, and obviously there's a tower burning. And I thought, wow, somebody's in trouble, because the Empire State Building had been hit, I think, in the 30s with an airplane. Yeah. And I thought, how could that happen? That's busy airspace. And about that time, in comes another one. It's like, okay, this is no accident, and it kind of went from there.
Yeah, it was a horrific moment. I had lost $75,000 off a portfolio of rate drops for a mortgage company, and it became apparent that I had to lock them all. And so I spent the night drinking and locking and losing $75,000. One of the things is when you have a portfolio like that, it floats. And until you lock everything in, it's floating. So, it can go up and down. I've lost up to $400,000 on it. And then you can gain too. But I spent the night drinking. And so the next morning, I'd been up to like 3, just doing all these loans, putting them in the computer. And I'd stayed up till 3. And at 7 a.m., I called the mortgage desk to go, hey, man, you need to make sure I put all that shit in the computer. Somebody needs to get on it this morning. And they go, Wall Street's been blown up. Like, that's literally what they told me. I was like, what? And they go, you need to turn on your television. And so smashed into the wall of, I can't have my contacts in. I go down to the TV and I turn on CNN and I see the building on a flame. And I'm sitting there going, what the fuck? And I'm hungover and just not in the best of moods or anything. And then I see that second plane come in live. Yeah. So I'm with you on that. It was extraordinary to watch it live and hit that realization that you're like, we're under fucking attack. It was an extraordinary moment. And so that made you want to stay in the military?
Yeah. Because, you just got to remember what it felt like right after 9/11. America had come together really in a way that it hadn't in a long time, and certainly isn't anymore. And we were part of, you heard it called the pointy tip of the spear, if you will, right? And so in the special operations community, we knew we would be part of the response. And as a flight lead in the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, or 160th SOAR, I knew I would be definitely part of it, because there was very few of us amongst the few in the organization.
Damn. Damn. So where do you go from there once that happens? Do you get, start gearing up for Afghanistan or?
Pretty close. I mean, so we drove back to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, which is up near Nashville. And once we got back, we were able to get on the classified networks and computers and find out what had happened. And the next day, I was on my way to Tampa, Florida, which is where the Special Operations Command resides. And we drove down in a 15-passenger van with a bunch of special planners. And initially, our plan was just to go over to Afghanistan to be what they call personnel recovery, or PR. So if a bomber crew got shot down or had to eject or something, we would go rescue them. And they ended up putting us in a country called Uzbekistan, which is just to the north of Afghanistan, because Afghanistan's landlocked. And we just sat there waiting for someone to screw up. And we were there by October 3rd. So that's how fast we moved. And then we had another task force move to the south on a carrier, the Kitty Hawk.
And were you mostly always flying the Chinooks?
No, I started out flying UH-1 Hueys, like you saw like in Vietnam. And then I was lucky enough to be the top of my class, and they had 2 Chinook slots. And I was lucky enough to get one because junior pilots generally didn't fly them back in those days. And that's how I got it. I actually was mad that I got it because I wanted to do assault work. And I thought Chinooks were all, moving cargo, which I turned out that wasn't the case.
Well, great plug out to your book. You've got a quote reference from General Petraeus. So that's pretty freaking awesome to have in front of a book.
Yeah. I got him, and Bill McRaven is on there.
Oh, wow. There you go, man. A great endorsement. And you've got wonderful ratings of the book too. So order it up, people. That's a plug for the book. So what was your most interesting mission as a pilot? Can you tease a little bit out?
Yeah, probably. Well, there were a lot of interesting ones, but probably the very first one, which was on October 19th, I brought the horse soldiers in. They weren't the horse soldiers at the time. They were ODA 595, which is a designation for a special forces team of 12 Green Berets. And that's where the movie 12 Strong comes from. But I flew them in the very first night that we flew, and encountered some weather conditions that really turned everybody else around. And I was able to continue with just the one Chinook and 12 guys in the back. And we used what was called a terrain following radar, or TF. Right. And what that does is you essentially play a little video game in the cockpit, and this video game allows you to climb and descend over mountains at 300 feet when you can't see out the window.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So it was, that was probably the most interesting.
And 300 feet, I guess you're trying to evade sonar radar, and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's designed to fly at 100, 300, or 500. And at the time, 500 wasn't certified for use in the clouds because it was brand new. Yeah. And we'd never been allowed to use it for real because it was considered too dangerous. Because, like, is your laptop or your phone ever bricked up on you? You had to reset it. Yeah. Well, imagine the black boxes on a $62 million aircraft doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And one of them is the radar. So,
and you're 100 feet off the ground. Right.
And so they hadn't yet certified 500, and 100 is really kind of too low. That's really for avoiding radar. So 300 was really just the altitude that it had. Wow. And it allowed it to see the terrain a little better. And it was pretty cool.
That's quite a. I mean, you're basically a carrier carrying special operators. You're carrying different people in your thing. So you're just not a pilot who's responsible for himself flying, an F-16 fighter jet. You have a whole mess of people in the back that are on some sort of mission, and your ability to keep them alive or get them to where they're going or out of where they're going is everything. How do you remain calm and keep focused in issues like that? And what does it feel like to have that sort of power? No, I'm just kidding. I mean responsibility.
Yeah. What it comes down to is the one thing that the special operations community is famous for is its realistic training. And essentially what you end up doing is we would call stress inoculation. Wow. So you put yourself in stressful situations in peacetime, in training events, so that when you experience it for real, it's kind of muscle memory. And that's really what it was. There's determination, obviously, because 9/11 had just happened. the missions we're doing, we know that if we fail this, I mean, Donald Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense, had called down personally to make sure we took off that night because he knew the weather was bad.
Wow.
And he's like, you have equipment to do it, you do it. Okay. So we did, and we encountered some problems along the way, but we were able to just stay calm because we just, fell back on our training. Now you get home, but home is in back to the forward operating base, and you kind of get away from the aircraft and you sit down, you try to have a cup of water or something, and your hand starts to shake a little bit. It's like,
really?
Okay. That sucked.
You're kind of like, I can't believe I made it through this. That was
Yeah, there was the first couple of weeks we flew every night, and so there were 2 flight leads, me and another one. We each had 2 helicopters, and one night after about our 3rd mission, we snuck off in a corner, and the CIA had given him a bottle of bourbon, and he's like, "Al, come here, I got a little snort, right?" So we go off alone, and we're trying to just decide, are we doing the right thing? What am I doing versus what you doing? And he goes, "What do you think, Al?" And I said, "I think we're going to die in the next flight." And he says, "Yeah, me too." And we did not expect to live through, because every mission was a little bit different. We encountered a different problem in each one, and we were pushing the aircraft beyond any limit, that we'd ever been allowed to do in peacetime. So it's like, okay, theoretically this should work, but we've never been allowed to get to these limits. And so we had a lot of ordnance fired at us, meaning heat-seeking missiles. We had 16 of them fired at us. I had 2 fired at me in one day. And we have like flares. You see it in the movies, the missile comes at you, the flares come out and it decoys them, but that still doesn't, make it feel good.
Yeah, there's no guarantees on that,
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, if they shoot multiple missiles at you with the equipment we had at the time, sometimes the sensors, which were like these little eyeballs, would get blinded for 30, 40 seconds. So if you fired 2 in rapid succession, the second one might get you because they don't spit the flares out. But that's all changed. It's better stuff now.
And then the big thing over there was the grenade launchers, the over-the-shoulder grenade launchers that all those little Iraqis had and Afghanistanis have. So they're shooting that crap at you.
Oh, they're everywhere. We had I can't even count the number of RPGs or 23 millimeter cannons fired at us. So 23 millimeters, like it's bigger than a 50 cal. It's like that big around. The projectile is that big around, but it's about that long. It looks like little flaming softballs coming at you. Yeah, you see it in the news, like when they invaded Iraq the first time. It snakes through the sky.
Oh yeah, that's what those were.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Note to self: stay away from those bullets.
Yeah.
I don't like flaming snowballs being thrown at me.
No.
Maybe on Friday nights. I don't know. It depends on what we're drinking. So this is quite an extraordinary story. I guess at one point you were almost shot down, or were you shot down?
I was shot down March 3rd of 2002. I was part of what was called Operation Anaconda, and that's a long story. But the gist of it is, I put these Navy SEALs on the top of a mountain called Takargar, and which was later renamed Roberts Ridge, because we got hit with an RPG and a bunch of machine gun fire that took all the systems out of the aircraft. So no electricity, no guns, so we couldn't even defend ourselves. And I was able to get off the mountain, but in the process, we lost one of the Navy SEALs. He fell out of the back of the aircraft onto the snow, which was about hip deep, and it was 12,000, almost 13,000 feet in altitude. And I ended up on the ground in a valley below. He's up on the top. My wingman. So I was Razor 03, and that's the call. That's the part of the title. And Razor 04 came and picked us up, moved us to a safe location, and then took the SEALs back in, which is where 2 medals of honor were earned. Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. It was funny you mentioned the date. I guess you never forget your first helicopter shoot down.
No, you never forget your first shoot down if you live.
Oh, and so you got all these crazy stories packed in the book where people can read about your adventures and everything else. Were you ever afraid you were going to die? Maybe when you were shot down, was there ever?
Yeah, I mean, like I talked in the beginning of the war, I definitely didn't think I'd survive past another mission or two. When I got shot down, once again, training. I was occupied mentally trying to save the aircraft, and the crew. And other than that, I was never, I'd like to say I was never successfully engaged again without intending to be. So, I got shot at again, but it was like I knew the bad guy. It was usually what we call a CASEVAC. You come in to get somebody that's been shot, and there's, machine guns and RPGs, and you don't know that you're going to make it, but you're going to try because you're going to try to save that guy's life. And then once you get out of there, the adrenaline is just flowing, and you just, once again, training kicks in, and you do what you got to do. And then later on, you can sit there and say, shit, it sucked.
Was it hard to transition after all those years and 2 wars back to being a civilian?
Yeah, I'll tell you, there was a bit of a process there because, the title of the book, Razor 03, A Night Stalker's Wars, is like a little bit of a play on words in that, I was in Desert Storm. I was in some other operations that I don't talk about. I was in, Enduring Freedom, which was Afghanistan, and Iraqi Freedom, which was Iraq. So that's one set of wars. And the other was my wife at the time had a prescription opioid addiction.
Oh my God.
And so as the years went by, it got worse and worse, and we were trying to hide it. We were trying to deal with it. She went to rehab, and she ended up dying in,
I'm sorry.
in 2012. Yeah. But it's one of those things, we were kind of on the cutting edge, I'd like to say, of the current, prescription opioid addiction epidemic. But anyway, when she died, the organization I was in, the Night Stalkers, offered some very nice opportunities for me, trying to take care of me. And I said, I need to change a venue, because everywhere I look is kind of a sad memory, because either it was happy and now I don't have it, or it was sad because it was bad. And I went up to New York, to Manhattan, and I unveiled a statue that's currently at Ground Zero, which is called America's Response. And it's a green beret on the back of a horse representing the horse soldiers. And while I was up in New York, a job opened up at West Point as the flight detachment commander for West Point. So I would fly a couple of helicopters up there, and I threw my name in the hat, and I got it, and did 3 years there. And now the reason I go into that is because, as a flight lead in the 160th, you live by the news, so if you watch the news and you see an event, it's like, how does that affect me? Should I look that up? And you start digging into the encyclopedias. What's the climate in country X? And you get to West Point, it's like, well, what's the temperature in DC? Or what's the temperature at Notre Dame, the college? And because you're flying the superintendent around and the parachute team and things like that. But I'd like to say, in the special operations community, you get the stresses up here. At West Point, it was like down here, but it wasn't like just a straight out transition would be down like this. And a lot of guys don't do well with that. So, as the responsibility I had there at West Point, I'd like to say was just enough stress to kind of keep me going. Met my current wife. The cadets I worked with were just amazing. Kind of gave me back my positive attitude, that I'd lost with all the opioid addiction stuff. And it just so happened I ended up meeting our county executive who needed an emergency manager. And I had all the certifications for it. And I worked with him on an air show, creating it. And he's like, hey, I don't have a helicopter, but I got a job for you if you want it. I was like, well, what is it? Anything to do with emergencies? And he's like, yeah, as a matter of fact, it does. So I ended up as a deputy commissioner of emergency services for Orange County, New York. And that's a lot like the military. So I've had a very, very easy transition. I have friends who have not done so well.
Yeah.
A couple of suicides and a couple of guys that just, they're still not doing well. But I turned out pretty good.
Good. Well, that's good to hear. The suicide rate of veterans is way too high.
Yeah.
And we've had different authors on that have talked about it, PTSD and things of that nature. Did you know at the, I don't know how well you knew people over there at the West Point, we had Dr. Nate Zinzer on the show?
Don't know him. No.
Okay. Yeah. It's a big place, I hear.
Yeah. If he owed me money or something, I would know.
Yeah, if he owed you money, you'd probably remember. Yeah. Well, it's good that you come. The other thing a lot of my friends that have been in the military talk about that went back for 3 or 4 tours of duty on in Iraq was they missed the brotherhood and the purpose, the sense of purpose, and they're just like, I feel so alone here. But when I go back there, I have a band of brothers. I have people that they're loyal to me. I'm loyal to them. They have my back. on my back, and it's really hard for them to make the transition to being back here.
I'm sorry to cut you off. People ask me all the time, do you miss, flying? And the answer is a simple no. I don't really miss flying. I miss the missions, right? I mean, we were going after the baddest of bad people. I mean, we were in the unit that got bin Laden and Zarqawi and things like that. And it's the people. It's exactly what you're saying. It's the people you're doing that mission with that make all the difference. I mean, there were times I was overseas, and the guy that was going to replace me, his wife had a baby, and he called me up and he's like, Al, I hate to ask you this, I know you've been there 4 months already, but could you stay an extra couple of weeks, and so I could spend some time with a new baby? And I was like, I'll take, 2 more months, I give him, another couple of months. And these were things in the early days that you just did because we always thought we were going to get bin Laden. We always kind of knew he was across the border in a certain area, just not the house. And you didn't really want to go home because you were afraid the guy that replaced you would get him, And it turns out the guy that got him was the guy that used to replace me.
Wow. That is awesome. Well, it's a joint effort, man.
Yeah.
We're all in it. And that guy hid really well for a long time. I was so relieved that the night that broadcast and Obama got on the telly and said, we got him. It was, I don't know what it was. The thing was, 9/11 really fucking changed me. Seeing that same vision on TV that you did with that second plane coming in live, that fucking scarred me. And I did not feel fully healed or fully reconciled until he was dead. And I don't know why. Some psychologists can figure out what the fuck that's all about. But yeah. Well, it's good for people like you who stand between us and the bad guys, because this country wouldn't be what it is without you folks. So we certainly appreciate your tour of duty and everything you did for this country. And without you, who knows where we'd be as a democracy, as a country. We'd probably we'd probably be sitting around watching the King's coronation there.
We could be. What do they call the 4th of July? Happy Trader's Day.
Trader's Day. Well, I'm going to be a trader. I watched some of that King's coronation. I'm like, now I see what our founding fathers were like. This is stupid and boring. I don't know. It's not stupid. It is stupid. Anyway, anything more you want to tease out of the book before we go, Alan?
Well, there's a lot of stories in there. Most of these are stories that were somewhere on the news at the time. And we attributed these to other people, so we didn't take credit for it. So you're getting it from my perspective. And I just signed a contract for a second book.
There you go.
So just now outlining it, getting ready to go. And it was a lot of fun writing it, the whole process. And I'm getting to go out and speak and stuff. But, get the book. It's on hardcover, Kindle, and audiobook, which I narrated.
There you go. Maybe you can get the Pentagon to pry open some of those classified missions. You can tell us the stories.
I'm hoping. Especially as time goes by.
So they are doing a novel and basically base the characters on. I think somebody did that. Anyway, I don't know. I don't want to get you in trouble with the Pentagons.
Yeah, they did. They scrutinized the book pretty good.
Did they? They gave it a good look.
It took them 9 months. Yeah.
There you go. Wow, 9 months to look at it. They read really slow over there.
Yes, it's supposed to take 60 days.
Yeah. Well, they got some other stuff going on. That whole Russian war thing, that's a whole other thing there. But hopefully that stays down so you can just stay home. And are you retired now? Fully retired?
Well, other than I work for the county, so retired from the military. Yeah.
There you go. Now you're just writing military books, which is a good gig. Well, thanks for coming on, Alan. We really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thank you. Give us your .com so we can find you on the interwebs, please.
Yeah, AlanCMack.com. That's ALANCMACK. And
there you go.
Also, you can get me on Instagram, AlanCMack2015, and I would like some followers.
Please get some followers. He's got amazing reviews on the book. He's got some great brand names. Go to Amazon or wherever fine books are sold. Order it up. Razor 03, I should mention. It's not just Razor 3. It's Razor 03. A Night Stalker's Wars by Alan C. Mack. Order it where fine books are sold. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time. And that should